Yo, what's up? It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to the Sunday Sermon with Mike, your mentor. Hope you guys have had a good week. Hope everything is going well. Welcome. Show me some love. Give me some likes. Leave your comments below. Hashtag live if you're watching this live. Hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. So my name is Mike King. And I run this page, Mike Your Mentor. And the reason that I created it mainly is because men are not answering their higher calling as husbands, as fathers, as friends, and as productive members and leaders of society. And this is our calling in life, right? And we have this responsibility to steward those things wisely, and we haven't done that. And if you turn on the news, look outside in your community, and you see all the craziness that's going on, in my opinion, that's a direct result of men not living up to this responsibility. And the main responsibility lies on us as men. And it's difficult because, in my opinion, I feel that we have gotten away from, in society, what it looks like to be a real man. Like, what does that entail? There's all these different opinions. If you go someplace and you ask 5 guys when they knew they became a man, you'll get 5 different answers. When I got in my first fight, when I got married, when I could pay my own bills, when I slept with a woman for the first time, when I bought my first house. A multitude of questions. In Western society, there's really no coming of age. There's no rite of passage. There's no system of passing on from one man to another what it means to be a man. And as a result, society continues to crumble, and unfortunately, men are lost trying to figure this out for themselves, and they create a trail of chaos and destruction behind them. Right on, James. That's right. When you realize you're made in the image of God. Good point. But on that path to destruction, to discover what real manhood means, there's been a lot of tough things that have happened, and I'm going to show you something here in a minute. That is part of the reason why I did this page, or that gives, I guess, a little bit deeper behind the scenes on that. So, that was my life story, right? I grew up without a father, in and out of my life, and as a result, I had a lot of feelings of rejection, feelings of abandonment, confusion, and trying to navigate those things. I caused a lot of pain to myself, a lot of pain to others, as I coped with a number of different things, trying to soothe or trying to fill these empty spots in my heart that had been left because of the wounds that my father had caused me. Now, September is National Suicide Month, and I want to show you this. So these were some statistics here in the USA as of 2016 regarding suicide and the demographics. And you'll notice this, right? Notice the rate at which males commit suicide compared to females. 3 times more likely to commit suicide than our female counterparts. And check this out, right? The ages that men commit suicide the most: 45 to 54, then 25 to 34, then 35 to 44, and then we have 15 to 24. It's sad, and there's a lot of reasons behind why men do this, but in my opinion, it comes down to one thing. We've forgotten as men what it means to be real men and what that looks like. And because we don't understand that completely and fully, we let confusion come into our lives, and when that confusion, as it continues to build, as that stress and that pressure builds, we get tunnel vision until we can't see all of the good things that our life entails and all the possibilities out there. And unfortunately, a lot of men can't work through that, and the way that they deal with that is they end up taking their own lives. And I don't know what that's like to contemplate suicide, but my family was affected by suicide as well when my brother decided to take his life when I was a sophomore in college, and he was a senior in high school, and he had just one thing after another happen in his life that I think just shrunk his view until he was like, I can't see any way out of this, and the easiest way to fix all this for me and everyone involved is to no longer be here. And so, this is the main reason why I do what I do, why I share what I share, because I discovered some things along the way that I believe can make a difference in men's lives. And if it helps to save just one man, then I'm all for it, and I will do what I can, because the Word of God says, no greater love hath a man than to lay down his life for his friends and for his family. And I believe as men and as brothers, we're called to do that. Excuse me. So the Sunday sermon is where I talk about my life, where I open up basically and share things I've been through, and then maybe a little lesson evolved around that. And so tonight I want to talk about, the one thing we can do to change our perspective on our lives. And I think it's vitally important, right? Especially when you find yourself heading towards a bad place, or you're in a bad place. You need to reframe your mindset. You need to be able to look at the world with a fresh set of eyes. And this is the one thing that I think, if you can do this, will totally change that for you. So I'm going to share my screen here, and then we can get into this. Alright, let's see here. Okay. Alright, Sunday sermon, week 35, get out of your bubble. Right? All of us, right? We get conditioned and we get trapped in this bubble known as our environment, and what's in our immediate environment, our immediate community, our immediate area, our immediate household. And because we're around all those things, we get conditioned to where we might not notice the possibilities that are out there, or the differences that lie in the experiences that we can take part in, because we're so used to things being a certain way. And this is one of the ways that we can reframe our mindset, that we can experience life and everything life has to offer, and make an adjustment and give ourselves some hope, give ourselves some vision for our lives, is to get out of our bubble. And when I talk about getting out of our bubble, that could mean, getting out of your community, going to another city. That could mean getting out of your state. Maybe that means you're fortunate enough to be able to get out of your country and see how other people are living. But either way, it's going to do a lot of things for you. So what I want to do is I want to share the two times in my life, or these two times in my life, where I was able to get out of the bubble that I was used to being in and experience the world around me. So this is a picture from a group of students when I was in college. My college had a very good study abroad program, so I was fortunate enough to go to Costa Rica and live there for 3 months with some of my fellow students. And this was the teacher that we had on one of our classes, one of our econ classes down there. And these were a great group of guys and gals that I spent 3 months with, traveling around the country and doing school during the week. And then after school got out on Friday, afternoon, we'd travel somewhere and experience what Costa Rica had. So this is a picture from me and my host family. So you had two options. You could live on your own, which I didn't realize really didn't make a difference. I'm actually glad that I got to live with a family than on my own. It just really improved my experience and helped me with the language barrier. So this is my family. That's me on the far right, if you can't tell. And then next to me is my madre. And then next to her was her daughter, I believe Paula. And then next to him, I think that was the guy on the far end is Christian. Man, this was so long ago. And I think the guy with the super curly hair in the middle, I want to say Julio, but maybe I'm wrong. It's been so long. But they were great. And then there was one other daughter that wasn't here. She was away at university herself. Funny thing about this family, so I lived with them for 3 months, strictly Spanish from the day they picked me up at the airport, and my head is spinning. They're talking probably slow, but what I think is fast, just trying to absorb the Spanish every single day. And on my the last week I was there, they were having 2 new students come to live with them. And I come in, and my madre is sitting at the dining room table with these 2 new students, these girls, and she's speaking perfect English to them, back and forth. And I look at her, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I've been here almost 3 months, and you haven't spoke a lick of English to me. You know English just as good as Spanish, and you're making me speak Spanish the whole time. This would have eased a lot of frustration on my end, but my madre just laughed and said that my Spanish was good and that I could handle it. So that was a fun experience. So I'll show you a couple pictures from our travels. So this is like the Doomsday Bridge. One weekend, as part of school, we had to go up to this biological preserve out in the rainforest, and we ride this Jeep, and we're traveling. This is like probably 3 hours into the trip. And we come to this bridge, and we're going to start to cross it on the Jeep when the guy who's taking us there gets a second thought, and he's like, nah, that's probably not a good idea. This is a very old bridge. We should just walk across it, and then I'll drive across it. So here we are on the Jeep. We stopped. Someone ran out to take a picture. That's me showing off in the front. And as you can see, several boards have been replaced, and it's I guess a chain link bridge or whatever, but we got out of this thing and we walked across, better safe than sorry. And here's a truck that had crossed before us with 2 other people in the back. So yeah, we finally make it to this biological preserve up here in the rainforest to stay the weekend. And one of the things that I'll never forget being in this biological preserve is the guy who ran it was like, what is the name? He was like the ultimate mountain man. I mean, I'm 6'2", he was a little taller than me, so he's probably like 6'4", full grown, massive beard. I mean, and at this time I probably went about 205, 210, and he was probably about 225, 230. I mean, just a thick guy, muscular, and just super rugged, right? And so we're sitting there, and he's talking to us, and across the wall runs this beetle. And this ain't your normal size beetle, man. This ain't like a little beetle that's the size of a quarter. This thing was probably the size of a baseball, if not bigger. And it stood there on the wall. And before we could even say anything, this guy takes this knife out of his off the side of his belt with this huge blade and stabs this thing through the wall, and then takes it off, and it's dangling on the end of his knife. And he asks in Spanish, who wants to eat this beetle? So both the girls are grossed out. Me and the guys look at each other like, you gotta be kidding me, this is crazy. No one wants to eat this beetle. And then this guy proceeds to separate the beetle's head from its body, and then crack the beetle open and eat the insides of this thing. I mean, this dude was crazy, right? So that was our first experience being in the preserve. And then here's the room where the guy slept, and as you could see, heavy bug nets around the bunk beds here to keep all of the bugs off of you. And I don't know where you live at, so I live in the suburbs, outside of the city. And two things that struck me: one, like at night, it is so black you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And we would go out on the porch and we would sit in these chairs and we would look into the rainforest, and all you could see everywhere were all these eyes looking back at you. I mean, it was kind of freaky, right? So it was an interesting experience. And then the second thing is looking up at the sky. I never saw so many stars in my life. It was like you could see galaxies up there. So amazing and so beautiful. So here's a snapshot of this waterfall. The next day they took us on a walk through the rainforest, like a 2-hour hike up the side of this mountain. And this looks like a pretty good shot, but what you don't realize is like I'm hanging on a vine over the side of this ridge to get a snapshot of this waterfall that they took us to see. So pretty crazy there. So this next shot is I played basketball in college, so I had to stay in shape, keep my game sharp, work on it. So there was this private school outside of the city that I lived in, and I would sneak onto this basketball court in the early morning and get my workout in until either one, it was time for me to go to school, or two, there was probably 2 times where someone inside of this little private school came out and yelled at me and told me to get out, but I had to do what I had to do. And then I think this is just a shot of one of the rooms that we stayed in when we went somewhere on the weekend. And then here's one of the places we stayed at. I'm not sure what city this was in, but this is my buddy Jeff floating and relaxing. And then here's another shot of that, drinking some good Costa Rican beer. And then if you can see that in the background, you see this little black thing floating. This was this monkey that lived there at the resort, and really would just swim and run around and come up to you. He's totally domesticated. A couple people would not name no names, would give the monkey beer and then other goodies. But yeah, definitely interesting. So this is one of the places that Costa Rica is known for. This is the hot springs. And where is this at? Can't remember the name of the city, but it's really cool. So these are natural hot springs, and you picture almost like a waterfall or a stream running downhill, and each one of these pools, this is right at the top. So this pool where you see the lady, she's got her legs in there, and then there's someone floating. That's the hottest of the hot, right? Like a hot tub. And then the next pool down is a little cooler, and then so on and so forth. There's 6 pools all the way down. The water runs down from this natural hot spring and gets cooler as it gets towards the bottom. So very cool. And then here's a shot from us on the beach. We met a couple of other students from somewhere else around the world that we hung out with a couple weekends there. Alright, and then here's us taking a nap on the beach, and this dude on this towel, his name is Judson, and Judson was a swimmer, super smart dude, engineer, computer science type brain, very logical. And if you could see in this picture, there's this iguana up here towards the right, and there was one time where Judd was sleeping on the beach, and an iguana that size or bigger got real curious and scurried up to Judson. Like, really, he was like almost right in front of his face. And I'll never forget this. Judson woke up because he heard, this thing, or like heard it breathing, or like felt something was watching him. And when he opened his eyes, man, he screamed so loud, and he was so freaked out by this thing staring at him. I'll just never forget it. It was one of the great moments of the trip. So here's a shot from one of the beaches. I don't know if this was Jaco or maybe Manuel Antonio, or maybe even Tamarindo. Just Costa Rica, just beautiful beaches, gorgeous. And then here's a shot of a monkey. Monkeys are everywhere. If you ever go to Costa Rica, and you go to a beach where the monkeys are up in the trees, you pack light and don't bring anything that you want stolen, because these monkeys will literally come out of the trees, go through your stuff, and run up in the trees with whatever they can get their hands on, and it's likely you won't get it back. So, little advice. Alright, here's another shot from a resort in Tamarindo. Tamarindo at that time was like one of the most expensive places in Costa Rica, one of the most developed from a Western aspect. And then here's me just swimming and playing around with these two boys. If you know me, you know I love kids, so couldn't resist the opportunity. And then here's one of the sunsets, I think from Tamarindo. So extremely beautiful. Alright, so that was Costa Rica. Great experience living there for 3 months and learning the culture, learning the language, experiencing the people and everything that it had to do. Completely changed my life being in a foreign country, pretty much for the most part on my own, trying to navigate and learn. Man, I did a lot of growing up during that time, but it was really good for me. I had come out of a real serious relationship that was really hard, so to get away and just like live on your own like that in a foreign country and realize like you can make it on your own, right? You can figure this out, like, and to see all these different experiences that life has to offer was awesome. So next trip that I took, when I got out of college, I was fortunate enough to go to the Philippines for 3 weeks with this organization called Sports Ambassadors, and for 3 weeks we went around the country playing basketball 2 to 3 games a day at these different towns and municipalities and cities, and we would play basketball, and at halftime one of us would share our stories, right? We'd give our testimony, talk about our life, and it was kind of fitting because I had just come out of my dad passing away and having to deal with everything that came with that, and finally facing the truth that my dad didn't know anything about me, and how difficult that was for me. And I've told the story lots of times, but how I heard God's audible voice at the funeral tell me that he knew everything about me, and just how that changed my mood instantly, and the peace that I had, and how amazing that was. So fitting that I go to the Philippines and I speak to thousands and thousands of people and get to share my story with them, and your ability to overcome traumatic situations and experiences in life, and how you do that, and what it takes. So here's a snapshot of us in one of the cities. I think this might have been in Manila, right, that first day with the guys there and the coach. And then here, I think I'm getting an award from the city that they gave to the whole team for coming out. It was really cool, right? So the Philippines, they love basketball. It's probably their number one sport. And the crazy thing is wherever we went, whether it was in a city or sometimes we drive 2 or 3 hours out into the middle of the jungle, there would be a basketball court. Somehow, some way, they found a way to get the cement up there, the way to make the baskets, and we'd play basketball. And people from the city, people from other cities would come from far and wide to see us play and to check it out. So go back to this picture a minute. So that's me in the back, number 15. Right next to me is my buddy Justin. So he goes about 6'8", right? And we'd ride around town in these little World War II Jeeps called jeepneys, and really not made for tall guys. So I think my head came pretty close to hitting the ceiling, but Justin would always have to scrouch in to fit. And funny, we'd pull up to these games or these places, and people would be waiting for us. And so we'd start to pile out, and they wouldn't really do anything, But as soon as Justin got out and he stood up, the people would be like, "Ooh, ah," and it was just so funny. And then we'd get in, we'd be warming up for the game, and like I'd go up and I'd hammer down a dunk or something, and in America people would be like, "Oh wow, that," they'd make noise and cheer or whatever. Not in the Philippines. Like, that's not impressive when someone who is shorter dunks. But when Justin would go, and like literally he had to jump, like Justin had crazy hops, but to dunk a basketball he really probably had to jump like 6 to 12 inches, so it was nothing for him. So but when he would dunk, the place would go nuts. I mean, they would scream at the top of their lungs, they would laugh and point and shout. So it was a funny, interesting experience. So here's another shot from me, of me at the school that we played at. This I don't know if it was a private school or a public, but yeah, thousands of kids watching, and we were playing against their high school team there. And then here's another school we went to, played another game, just telling a joke and sharing my testimony. And then afterwards, we'd sign autographs, and we had these little booklets that we'd pass out to people, and just talk to the students, right? And then here's me taking a nap, and this was from one of the games, like deep in the jungle, and it was crazy, right? Because this is why it's so important to get outside of your bubbles, to see how other people live and to experience their world, because it puts things in perspective for you, and one, it shows you how fortunate you are with the stuff that you have, but two, if you're not from maybe you're not from America, and even if you are, too, it gives you perspective. It shows you what's possible, like what's out there. And this situation gave me perspective, right? Because we were in the jungle, and these people barely had anything. They lived in little tiny huts with thatch roofs, and in this wood floor, and then they slept on these mats at night. They didn't have beds. They didn't have anything that I was accustomed to in America. No hot water, no running water in this particular situation. And it makes you grateful for the things that you have, and really shows you how spoiled we are in America, that we could just go over to the faucet and turn it on, and out comes clean water. So, and then here's me at this local church. They asked me if I would speak, so this is my first time ever getting up there, and I guess preaching. So maybe this was the original Sunday sermon, if you will. So now I just want to summarize with a couple points, talking about really just bringing it home, the importance of bursting your bubble and getting out there, right? So one, I talked about this a little bit. Put your life in context, right? Shows you what you have, how fortunate you are to have the things that you have. Shows you maybe what you don't have in your life, but what's possible, right? If you're willing to work hard and do the things that it takes to get those things, whatever that may be for you. It gives you hope, gives you vision. It really shows you what the world has to offer to us as people, and how beautiful of a place it is, and all these things out there for us to experience. And when we start to go to bad places, we forget about that, and we need reminders of those things, because they're extremely important, right, to keep things in perspective. This is one of the ways. And then, like as I said, yeah, it gives you vision and gives you hope, because it lets you see what possibilities lie beyond your backyard, beyond what you're familiar with. Even if you've never been outside your city, just getting to go to another city. Frequently we'll travel to Chicago, where my daughter was born, and getting to experience the big city and the vibe and the hustle. And some people like that, some people don't, but either way, it's an experience, and goes to show you another part of life. And then around here where I live in the suburbs, I drive 10 minutes in a certain direction, and then I'm out really in country, and seeing how people live, and just the slower pace of life. It's good. It's good to experience all those things. And then too, experiencing something new. In the Philippines, they have this thing called balut, and it's a delicacy there. And what it is pretty much chicken eggs. Not like the eggs, if you're in America, that we have, where it's just yolk. These are almost eggs that were about to hatch, and they love them there, and they crack them open, and they put some salt down it, and then they sip the juice out, and then they eat the little baby chicken that's in there. And they wanted me to experience that, and I did not want to experience that, so I didn't experience it personally, but I got to see it many times. So that's an example of experiencing something new, getting out in the jungle, and seeing how people live, and just how content and happy they are with things, and they didn't need a bunch of material things to make them happy. Right? There's something to be said about that. The joy that comes from having less, and you get to meet some new people. This is probably one of the best things about getting outside of your bubble. And I don't care if you're a people person or you're not a people person. Right? Like for me, like in high school, I like to think that I had friends from all different cliques and groups. But that's what high school is. It is a bunch of groups of people who talk the same and look the same, and we hang out and surround ourselves with that. And then getting out of that bubble and going to college, and really expanding into different groups, and learning that it's our differences as people that really make life great, and learning about other people and where they came from and their stories and what they like and what their gifts are and stuff is really incredible. And it's something that my grandfather instilled in me in a young age. And I love meeting new people, and hearing about them, and learning about them. Obviously I have my limits, because that can be somewhat tiring and draining for me. I'm not a super people person where that pumps me up and stuff. But I do like meeting new people, and we all have our limits. So it's good to get out and meet new people and see how they live, and what they have to add, on what they can give and share and share with us to make our lives fuller and richer. And then obviously you learn something about yourself, especially if you go somewhere else to live on your own. You find out real quick what you're made of, and it can be difficult at first, but it's really empowering once that fear and that I guess doubt of wondering if you're going to make it goes away, and you see that you can survive, and you can find a way. I mean, I remember when I was in Costa Rica, and some of the people would talk so fast, my brain couldn't quite process it at the beginning, and we still got by because I was able to point at things or mime things out, right? And that's crazy how us as humans, as people, we can find ways to relate and to communicate even when we don't speak the same language. And it really goes to show just how connected we are as human beings. It's wonderful. And then finally, one of the most important things about bursting your bubble is it gives you a fresh start, man, or a chance to regroup. And I can't tell you how important that is, especially if you feel like your life is becoming routine, if you feel like your life is going nowhere, if you feel like your life is going downhill. If you can just get out of your immediate environment, out of your community, your city, and just go somewhere else for a little bit of time, if it's drive to the nearest big city, if you're fortunate enough to get out of the country and go somewhere, I mean, it pays dividends, not only emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even sometimes physically. It will do you good. So that's it tonight for the Sunday sermon. Hope you guys got some good stuff out of that. Appreciate you guys tuning in and checking this out. And if you need anything, if your life is stagnant, or you feel like your life is maybe going downhill, and you're just dealing with some stuff, and you need somebody that will listen to you without judging you, and maybe you need somebody to give you some honest feedback and not pull any punches, and not be a yes person in your life, hit me up. I would love to do life with you. I would love to help you get out of that funk however I can. So I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for My Life Monday. Have a good night.